Yo, what's up, everyone? This is Gary A. Swaby, and we're now doing a non-spoiler review of The Punisher, which is going to be released on Netflix tomorrow. I'm here with Mr. Richard Bailey Jr. How you doing, Rich?
What's up, Gary? What's up, listeners and viewers?
Yep, and also here with Mr. Jake James Lugo. How you doing, JJ?
I'm doing good, Rich. Eager to talk about this.
Yeah, me too, man. And we're also here with Miss Dana Abercrombie. How's it going, Dana?
Hey guys.
Cool. Yeah. So the Punisher, lots to say about it, especially, when we get to the part where we're going to compare it to the other shows that have come before it as well. But, just to start off with and just to get in the general flow of this discussion and everything, what did you guys think of the casting, first of all? Now, I know we've seen, the guy who plays Frank Castle, we've seen him in Daredevil before previously. So, we've gotten the gist of his acting. And as Rich said in his article that he posted on the site, a couple of days ago, the guy has also been in The Walking Dead. He was in Wolf for Wall Street, so we're familiar with his acting, and he played those roles really well. But is he a really good Frank Castle? Rich, since you wrote the article, let us know your thoughts on the actor.
So yeah, I pretty much would say yeah, he is. He has starred in a lot of films, a lot of TV shows where he's playing a tortured soul, I guess you could say. It's a character that always has conflict. It's a character that you generally you feel sorry that he has to endure so much, but you definitely root for him. And in The Walking Dead, he was a character that, he was the best friend to Rick Grimes. But of course, that went south real quick when he thought that Rick died, messed around with his wife, and they eventually became bitter enemies. So you feel sorry for the character because he is a good person, but being stuck in that environment definitely changes people. So I do commend AMC for doing a good job on that show. So when it came time to cast him as Punisher, I thought he did an excellent job. Um, yeah, again, he's still dealing with the stuff with his family who is deceased, but it's because of that that he really has issues trying to have relationships with others because it's all about he doesn't want anything to happen to them, so he really tries to close himself off from them. So I thought he did a great job. And in terms of everybody else on the show, yeah, I thought the whole cast was fantastic. I don't really have any complaints about the casting.
Cool. How did you feel about the casting, Dana?
Well, again, as Richard said, I thought John was wonderful. He was an excellent choice. He is known very consistently for playing these tortured soul characters. So he was able to basically translate all of the emotions that Frank Castle was going through into each and every scene. And he has the ability to act without even saying anything, which I think is wonderful. And the other cast members were great as well. Everything seemed to work like a well-oiled machine. They fed off of each other. So casting-wise, I was very pleased.
Yeah, just seeing, John Bernthal's other work in, specifically like The Walking Dead and Wolf of Wall Street, like he's, his physique is I wouldn't think of him as, the first guy to play Frank Castle physique wise, but his acting is, is the roles that he's been able to play so far. They definitely credit themselves to being able to play Frank Castle. So I think it's sorry, it's his actual talent for acting is what really brings out the role for him. Even though he's not the first person who would come to mind to play Frank Castle, he really did do a good job of commanding the role and making it his. So I think he did great. JJ, what's your thoughts on the casting?
I thought that the actor that played Frank Castle was really good. I loved him back in Daredevil. I think that myself and a lot of us here and other people that saw him on there really gravitated and attached ourselves to him pretty well. on there because he did a very good job, and he continues it here in this series, which is great because again, he's this focal point of this series. Now, all the casting, I'm not going to lie, there were some casting choices and at least, some characters that I didn't gravitate or at least resonate as much with throughout the episodes that we saw. But that doesn't really kind of like knock the acting ability of the actors or the actresses like that. There were just some characters that I just felt like, as much as I tried to love them or as much as the show wanted me to try to love them, with everything going on, it just didn't click with me. I wanted to see more or go back to moments with Frank Castle, at least, see what was going on with him or some of the other characters that he was interacting with and some of the other more interesting secondary characters that maybe didn't get as much screen time as I thought.
Yeah, so another question I have for you guys, like there is a lot of supporting characters in there. Do you guys think that's the supporting characters shine as much as Frank Castle himself in this series?
Honestly, no. I mean, here's the thing. Some do. I shouldn't say not all of them do. There are some that get a lot of shine that I feel like it doesn't really click as much with me. Some characters, and again, I don't want to get too much into it because of spoilers, but there's other characters that appeared in other shows that we see that have some sort of, connection to Frank that I felt like could have been given a little bit more. At least they were there and it's like they made an appearance, but they could have at least gone a little bit further than what we actually saw, or at least what they gave to us. Now, some of the other ones that we kind of come across, as you watch each episode, I think they get a little bit better over time, especially as you start to see more things start to unfold. At least we get more closer to what's going on in the overarching story of the Punisher. But overall, I still think that the central focus point is Frank, and everything that's going on with Frank is really kind of like, ground zero for all the other types of things that we see with the other secondary characters, which is how it should be. Remember, it's Frank Castle's show. It's the Punisher. It's not really supposed to be the other characters' shows. I don't think any of the secondary characters steal the show, however. Compared to like some other Marvel Netflix series that have happened here and there, that some characters get a little bit much more, they do a little bit of a better job and everybody connects with them a little bit more than the title character. But I don't really get that here at all.
Okay, that's interesting. Rich, how did you feel about the supporting characters?
If there's only one other character that I think does get a little bit of shine, it is Micro. We do learn some more about that character, but yeah, I mean, pretty much I agree with a lot of what Mr. Lugo said. It definitely is Frank Castle's show, and that is important to say that it's supposed to be about him. Some of the other characters, we don't really get a lot of glimpse of them, but I will say that, again, we've only seen the first 6 episodes. I don't know if we'll get to learn more about those characters in the next 7 episodes. I would assume that some we will. But overall, I mean, it does. I mean, again, the main point of the show is to emphasize, the Punisher, the character, and all of the stuff that he has to deal with. Because again, all of the thought was he was still dealing with stuff with his family, which he is, but now he has all this other new controversy that he has to deal with and get to the bottom of also. So I think that they did a good job as far as him. Some of the other characters maybe need a little bit more development. But again, that could change by the time we've seen the whole season. So, but so far so good.
Yeah, I think Micro was a great supporting character, and in terms of, because there's 2 agents in here as well, and there's Dina and Sam, and like I think Dina was shaping up to be a really good, strong character, but then there was a couple very questionable scenes from that character that made me think, okay, where are they really going with her? I suppose we'll have to see the full series before we can get a full like judgment of the character, I guess. But yeah, she was shaping up to be a really good character for me, but then there were just a few little questionable things in there that,
I do have one thing I want to say. I don't want to be controversial. But that character that you just mentioned, I feel as though I guess they needed to have like some type of attractive character to look at. Because on every show, this is the same thing. We've seen it on Power. And I think that a lot of people, when they see this character, that's a lot of guys just going to think, yeah, she's pretty hot. They probably won't even care about anything that she's going through. But I agree. I don't know what they want with the character, but obviously that they got to have some attractive people on the show. So I guess That's why she was casted as well as a lot of the other people. But yes, I don't want to start any controversy. This is just my opinion, so that's what I was going to say.
Yeah, I agree with that. So yeah, before we move on to the next question I had, Dana, what's your thoughts on the supporting cast and characters?
Well, the supporting cast and characters, I think they all did their job, that was given. My favorite will always be Daniel Weber, who played Lewis Walcott. I think his storyline was very grounded and very honest and truthful as someone who has a family member who is in the military and suffered from PTSD. I loved every single thing about his character, and I was interested, not necessarily more than knowing about the Punisher, but I was just equally as interested in learning about his character. I found Dina to be, I don't know, very annoying to me. She was just bothersome and annoying, and she was like that pest that just wouldn't go away, which is, the purpose of her role. But after a while, she just started to get on my last nerve. I think that she did well with the role that was given to her. I've seen her in other things before. Well, she's not exactly, an actress who stands out, with her acting, but I think she did decent. And Micro, what I love so much about Micro was that they took the character and they actually gave him this personality and things to do. Because if you look at the comics, he's more just basically like tech support. So the fact that they had him in there doing things, I loved it. And he's always seemed to have, like, I don't know what's really going on with him, whether or not I can trust him. So I think that, it always kept, in the back of the mind, the wheels always spinning of what's really going on with him. So I loved everything that they did with the supporting characters. And also the guy who played Diana's the partner. He was, I think, equally, he started out as being like lazy, but then he had like character growth and development. And I kind of took a liking to him as well.
Yeah, I want to add on to that because I feel the same way as Dana about Dinah, because I felt a little bit where like in a couple of the other older Netflix series from Marvel, there's like that one character or one thing that they really want you to gravitate towards. And that's how I felt about Dinah, where there was a lot of moments with her that they almost really gas her up. They really try to, make it where she's going through this overarching storyline throughout the season about some stuff that we can't really get into now. And I just don't I tried to like it. And I really tried to give it a chance. And every time I felt like it was forced. Now, here's the thing. I mean, it could kind of get a little bit better towards the later half or later section of the season, based off what we saw. But as it stands right now, I felt a little bit both similar to both Dana and what Gary said, that, there were just certain moments that just like, okay, it's like, this is not doing it for me. Like, this is just not working. Or my perfect example, there was one scene, without getting into too much context of it, that was it felt like it was kind of like inserted in there in between, was it a whole sequence or a section of like certain events going on, that if you would have removed it out and pasted the two scenes on the outside of it together, you would have never lost anything. Like, it just felt unneeded. And there was a couple moments like that, but that was the one that really stood out to me. And I was like, okay, this one character I'm really trying here, and it's just not working.
Yeah, I think I know exactly what you're talking about. But yeah, that's a conversation for later. So yeah, another question I wanted to ask you guys. So, I'm not sure on how deep your knowledge of the Punisher and Frank Castle goes, and if you read all the comics or seen all of the other movies or other source material that's out there. But I wanted to ask you guys, do you feel that Frank was true to his character throughout this show? Now, I'll go first. So I feel like he was true to his character. I think he was truer to his character in Daredevil season 2. But here's the thing: this is a season. It has to be. I don't know how many episodes it is actually. Like, whether it's going to be 10, 12, 13. I'm not quite sure on that. But this is a whole season, so there has to be some level of pacing. So he can't be crazy murder spree Frank Castle all the time, so I understand that they had to kind of pace things out and have a bit of slow moments where he's, you know, he's getting help from Micro to, you know, figure things out, and he's doing a bit of investigative work and, you know, things of that nature. You know, looking after Micro's family and stuff like that, you know. So there are those slower moments that I don't, you know, I've never really seen when reading The Punisher, you know, because he's just always on offense. He's always on attack mode, you know, he's always brute force kind of. But yeah, in this season, we kind of get to see another side of Frank Castle, I guess. And it's not bad, you know, it's not a bad thing at all. It's just something, it's a side I'm not used to seeing of the character. But that's not a bad thing. But what are you guys' thoughts on, you know, Frank Castle in the series, and is he true to, you know, the source material? I'll go to you first, Dana.
Well, I'm not entirely knowledgeable on the comic, so from what I did look at and glance over, I think that he is very much true to the comic and the original source material. The thing that I love most about his story and how it's portrayed is that it's very much grounded in realism. You know, there aren't, you know, superheroes that's going to come in and save the day. This is a story that is relatable for everyone. You know, these are people who are humans with human emotions, and these are human storylines. And from that aspect, it is very much true to the source material. So I think they did a good job on that.
Cool. Yeah, I kind of agree with that. What do you think, Rich?
So I haven't really kept up on any of the more recent comics, so I wouldn't really know to say much on as far as how he's presented in regards to the comics. I know I've seen a lot of the other movies that have been out there for the Punisher. And while I thought the Thomas James Punisher was okay, I mean, to me, again, as I said in that article, I think that, you know, John's particular portrayal of the character it just works. You know, again, because he has a history of playing these types of characters. I understand, and I agree with what you said, Gary. They definitely had to change the character up a little bit because of the fact that he was in the spinoff. He has his own spinoff, and he was in Daredevil. That made sense because in the Daredevil, he was also seen as somewhat of a villain towards Daredevil, and that obviously changed over time. So I think they definitely had to change it up this time around. I still do think, though, well, so far, I mean, he's true to the character, in my opinion. We definitely will have to see what happens in the next couple episodes because there's a lot of things that are still in development. But I would say, for the most part, I think he is true to the character.
Cool. Yeah, definitely understood. There's more I want to say, but you know, I just can't. But yeah, I'll wait till the spoiler episode. But JJ, what's your thoughts? Is he true to the character?
Now, I've kept up with a decent amount of Punisher stuff from Marvel Comics. Again, Punisher has a lot of stuff and a lot of cameos and other like characters as comics here and there, you know, because again, he's doing his vigilantism all over the place. Now, as far as the Netflix show, they did take some liberties with not only just the origin of the character, but also with a lot of his other supporting cast, a lot of other things that are kind of building up throughout the season. Now, I can't really get into specifics because of spoilers, and we'll probably dive deep into that when we finally do our spoiler episode. But the kind of like the growth and the change of certain characters that end up becoming antagonists at some point has kind of been changed, or at least taken a lot of liberties where it makes sense for a presentation of the character's story, kind of like this for a Netflix series. At the same time, one of the things that you don't really get too much in the comics, at least from the ones that I've read from like 90s all the way up to early 2000 stuff, minus the new Marvel stuff that they probably got going on now, because I'm not really sure what they're doing with the character at this moment. But there's a lot of focus on the military as far as, you know, patriotism and things of the sort in the Netflix series, which I think works as far as like the grand context of stuff with the creative liberties that they took. And it wasn't, that was one of the aspects where I felt like it wasn't really forced down people's throats. I mean, it was done just enough and addressed just enough. And I feel like a lot of the topics that they touched on are more relevant now today, you know, with everything else that's been going on in the news and such, that they kind of make sense here and there. Do they get in the way of like what the character is at its core, as far as like Frank Castle, the Punisher? No. If anything, I think it kind of works with it. And the actor's performance with it, I just feel like, again, it just works together with everything going on. He never really becomes a dude bro. Like with a lot of stories like this, when you get into stuff about the military, you just get into stuff about veterans, and you get into stuff about patriotism. That's what usually is like the traps that you see with a lot of movies and television, that they almost end up falling to that trap. They become like they get like Call of Duty syndrome, and it becomes almost a parody of itself. But with this one, I didn't really find it like that. I felt like they did everything tastefully while still keeping true to what the character is, a vigilante at heart. So to me, I thought that at least that was good. But there are some liberties here and there that they took.
Cool. Yeah, I definitely agree with the whole, the way they introduce the military slant on things. And with that, I want to go to Dana, because Dana, I know you've been very vocal about you've had a family member that suffered from PTSD, when serving in the military and stuff like that. So what are your thoughts on how that side of things was portrayed in the series?
Oh, I thought it was very realistic. I don't really see it like taking sides on getting. Yes, it's the political. To me, overall, the show is a political thriller, but it's not. When they portrayed the show, the soldiers, they didn't do it where you're like, taking sides one way or the other way. They did it in a very most honest way. Some people come back with PTSD. They cannot, for the most part, get out of it. It's really easy to say snap out of it. And we really see through the character of Wilcock that it's not that simple, and how there are certain things that he just cannot relate to anymore when he's back in civilian life, and how he tries his best to, become a civilian again. But everything that he tries to do, he feels is just not good enough. And even if someone was to say, oh, I want to help you, and there's a scene that I really can't talk about where he kind of goes back in his mind about being back in the war, and how he literally has to sleep a certain way of how he did back when he was in Afghanistan, or where I think it's Afghanistan that takes place. I'm not sure. But anyway, it shows that, mentally he's still stuck there. And as someone who witnessed this firsthand with my family member, it's very much true. And there's a character that really tries to talk to him and doesn't seem like he can reach him. And that is, you need to, it's intense therapy, and they try to provide that for the character, but he keeps losing it. And through him, and also through John's portrayal, you see him always stuck back at that mission that he was in, that we can't really talk about. But we see him and the consequences that it has on him in his life, even just mentally, and how he always carries this burden with him. And it's in the body movements, and like you see it through his eyes while he's looking at you, but you can see that he's not fully there. He's still back at that mission. And I think that it is a beautiful conversation starter to say this is what, soldiers go through. Not all of them, because we see one character where he's able to, get out of that hole, per se, and he's able to live, a life of normalcy and to go back into society, and he's able to function. So it's not, not everyone is going to suffer the same fate mentally, but it does happen. And the show does a great job acknowledging that. And I think it's a great conversation starter, for people who want to know more about PTSD, and for people who do suffer from PTSD, who want help, but don't know how to relate to other people when it comes to asking for that help. So with that aspect, I think that it was just beautiful of how it was portrayed.
Indeed, couldn't agree more. Very well done. So yeah, I mean, moving on from that, how did you guys find the pacing of the show? Now, I did. Now I understand these are series, like that. It's a bunch of episodes, so they do have to space things out a lot. I will say that while I found it slow sort of slow. It wasn't painfully slow like some of the other shows, like Iron Fist, for example. It definitely wasn't painfully slow, and I feel like a lot of the slower scenes and the slower moments still meant something to the story. So I can't complain, even though the pacing was a little slow, but it meant something. Every scene kind of, did mean something. So it's not bad in any way. But what did you guys think of how the show was paced? Go ahead, JJ. JJ.
Yeah. Honestly, I'm kind of like with you on that one. I think that at the very beginning, I thought it was going to be a little bit slow, kind of like how Iron Fist was, but it ends up picking up a lot more faster pace as you go along with each episode. Like there's actually things happening, somewhat here and there. Now, don't get me wrong. Like I mentioned earlier, there were some moments and some events where I felt like they were kind of unneeded. Like they just didn't need to be there because it distracted from whatever else was going on. Where you could focus on something different, or at least the next scene after that, it would have been much better. But as a total show, or at least from what we've seen thus far, I think it works out pretty good. I'm interested and curious to see if they kind of pick up the pace towards the end, or at least if the momentum reaches an apex at some point. Kind of like what Daredevil usually does. I feel like Daredevil, out of all the Marvel Netflix shows, is usually the one that's the better paced, even though all the different shows do their own little things here and there pretty good. But as far as like pacing, Daredevil is usually like the gold standard at this point. And this one is kind of just below that, but it's still pretty good from what I've seen.
Okay, cool. Just to let you know, your mic was crackling a little bit. Not sure if that was due to connection or mic problem or something. But yeah, just letting you know. But yeah, I agree with you. So Rich, how about what's your thoughts on the pacing?
Well, based on what I saw in the initial first 6 episodes, I think it's. I mean, I guess you could say it does have some issues here and there. There's a lot of flashbacks, a lot of repeated flashbacks. In particular when Frank does think about what happened to his family. They really use a lot of that stuff over and over again, recycling it for the purposes to emphasize that the character is still very much dealing with these issues, which is fine. Again, though, I mean, the pacing may not be perfect, but again, it is 20 times better than a lot of the pacing that we saw in the Defenders, as well as Iron Fist. So I don't really think I had an issue with that per se, but that's just my opinion.
Cool. Unfortunately, Dana's gone missing, so yeah. I
Oh,
guess she's gonna. Oh, here she is.
There she is.
Dana, are you
Sorry.
here?
Yep, I'm here. Sorry.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so the question was, how was the pacing of the show? So what's your thoughts on the pacing?
Oh, the pacing, it was fine. It was definitely not Iron Fist. Oh God, Jesus, no. It was one of those slow, it was a slow burner, but when I say slow burner, I don't mean boring. I mean everything was built on tension. It started right away with it being a very intense scene with a very bloody shootout, that I can say. So it just builds and builds and builds and builds upon the suspense, but it is not boring. It wasn't slow, nothing dragged. Everyone, I felt, they was there for a purpose and a meaning, and it built the story forward. Was it perfect? Absolutely not. But for me, sitting down and watching it, I enjoyed it. I didn't have any problems. I wasn't like passing out and going to sleep because I was just bored to tears. So the pacing it worked for the story. Frank Castle, as is depicted, is not a man who's like, fast moving, big action type of guy. He is, very methodical. There's a lot of things and strategies that goes into it, a lot of thinking. This is a thinking movie. I mean, TV show. So you're not going to get, everything being, all over the place and wild and crazy. It's not like a Thor type situation. So I think that it worked well. I loved it. It fit all of the characters, and they finally, found a pace that worked.
Cool. Yeah, I can agree with that. So yeah, I guess the final question I had, well, I do have one more after this, but yeah. So I was gonna ask, how does this show compare to the other Marvel shows that we've seen on Netflix? So I know for me, I definitely put those first two Daredevils up there, and I also really like Jessica Jones as well. But I think I would put Punisher above Jessica Jones. So for me, it would be Daredevil one, actually no, Daredevil two, Daredevil one, and Punisher for me personally. Um, but yeah, how would you guys compare it to other shows in terms of quality? How you would rank it? However you would compare it. So I'll go to you first, Rich.
Well, first and foremost, if anyone was to ask me, so what do you think of Defenders and Iron Fist that both came out this year? I would say this show is not even in the same league with those other shows. Definitely the best show, I would say, the best Netflix Marvel show this year, in my opinion. Um, but in terms of when compared to the other ones, I don't know. You see, I think Daredevil is always at the top of the list. The one season one and two, because I mean that was the show that started it all for a lot of people. Jessica Jones, I think, is good too. Luke Cage is good, but to me, I think the Punisher definitely belongs right up there. Just like you said, right alongside Daredevil, it has to be up there because of the realism and the fact that they do not shy away from keeping it very brutal, very violent when they need to be violent. And then to me, I think that is one of the best things about the show because I know I've seen a lot of shows on TV, other from whether it's Marvel or DC, where again it's kept a lot of stuff is pulled back and kept from being less violent because it is on TV. This show, it really, it is no rating, so they can get as graphic as they need to get, and I appreciate that. So because of the realistic nature of it, the fact that a lot of things do happen, and again, there is one particular thing I cannot talk about it now. I've talked about it on the spoiler show. Just to know that the character is vulnerable. Um, you get a sense of that also in Daredevil, which is why I think both that show and this show belong at the very top of the list. The other characters, like Luke Cage, I guess you could say he's vulnerable, but again, this is a character that he can get shot multiple times and he'll be fine. But if Punisher gets shot or Daredevil gets shot, then they could be mortally wounded. So I think definitely, absolutely has to be up there at the top, right alongside Daredevil, in my opinion.
Cool. Yeah, yeah. Very much agree with that sentiment. How about you, JJ? What's your thoughts? How would you compare it? Your mic's muted at the moment.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, we hear you.
Perfect.
Yeah. Yeah, can you repeat that? Because my headset blew out for a second.
Okay, yeah. So basically, how would you compare it to, the other Marvel shows, whether it's, ranking them or just in terms of quality, how you think it compares with the other shows?
I think this one hits right at the midpoint from what we've seen thus far. I don't think it's as good as Daredevil, and I don't think it's as good as Jessica Jones or even Luke Cage to an extent. Because I mean, you could probably switch those two around between Punisher and Luke Cage because at least Luke Cage didn't really have a good finish, but had a really strong beginning for me. With this one, again, I think it's a good show for what it is so far, and I'm curious to see what else they do and how else they're going to connect it to the other Marvel series at some point. But I don't think it's as bad or bad whatsoever compared to what a lot of people felt with Iron Fist, and I don't think it's hit that pedigree yet with Daredevil and Jessica Jones at this point. But it's still good. I would thus far, like having seen everything that we've seen so far, would I be going for a second season if they were going to do it? I'd be probably totally down. But again, we have to see a little bit more how it connects to the other series, or at least that Netflix section of the MCU, and see what else goes down, and see how strong they finish off with the series.
Cool, yeah. Just to add on to that as well, I definitely would love a second season, but I also feel like, while it's cool to have, Punisher crossover with the other characters every now and then, I feel like he can carry his own show, and he doesn't even need to be a part of the Defenders to really shine. He can just keep doing his own thing and focus on street level crime and stuff like that, and it would be highly entertaining for me. It would satisfy me. But yeah, having the crossover every now and then is fine, but I feel like he doesn't depend on the other characters either, and he really stands on his own, so that's a good thing. But Dana, what's your thoughts on Punisher and how it compares to the other shows?
Well, as someone who just sat through all of Inhumans, The Punisher was the greatest thing I've ever seen in my life. But comparing to the other Marvel Netflix shows, oh, it's really hard to rank them because you see they're important on different levels. But if I was to say, I would. It's hard. Jessica. Oh, see, this is hard because can we just do ties? Because Jessica Jones season 1, Daredevil season 2, and Marvel, The Punisher would just get the top spot. So yeah, they're number 1 in my book, and then the other ones follow. I can't choose between those 3.
Okay, that's fair enough. It's your list, that's respectable right there. So yeah,
You can't outdo the Purple Man. I mean, David Tennant, his performance, I can't do that. Hurts my soul.
Yeah, I guess we all kind of mutually agree that Punisher is definitely one of the better shows, because there have been a couple that have been a bit questionable, but Punisher is definitely one of the good ones for sure. So yeah. The last thing I really wanted to ask you guys was basically just, your overall verdict so far based on what we've seen, of the Punisher. Yeah, so just a summary basically of your thoughts. So Dana, we'll stick with you. What's your verdict so far?
So far, I love this show. It's like a big apology letter for Inhumans and the crappy ending to Luke Cage and all of Iron Fist's existence. So I think that they are doing a really great job. I appreciate everything that they're doing. I hope that it doesn't fizzle out like Luke Cage does. I pray that there's a satisfactory ending, and I look forward to everything that is going to happen. But I will say this, that I appreciate this show more because it doesn't rely on the other Defender characters. That I can say because Marvel put out a statement. So that is what I did enjoy so much about it, and that makes its own standalone thing, which I think that makes the show stronger. So I'm really looking forward to that aspect.
Yeah, indeed, and I agree with that. The show definitely stands on its own without, having to be associated with the Defenders. It's always nice to see crossovers, but yeah, Punisher definitely can stand on its own. And yeah, as for my thoughts, my summary, I really, really do enjoy the show. Love it. Can't wait to see more of it. And as a Punisher fan as well, I really like the little subtle things that Frank does in the series that very much does represent the Punisher character. Even like his eating habits, like how he always eats out. He eats tinned food basically. Like he'll eat that for like dinner or something like that. Like that seems very Punisher to me. So I liked the subtle stuff like that as well. Yeah, I think it was very well done. Although some parts are a little slow, it's not slow in a bad way, and it's they use the slow moments to flesh out the characters and get real deep with them and stuff. So it's well done. Definitely the best Marvel TV show this year, in my opinion. So yeah, that's my final verdict on it. How about you, Mr. Jake James Luca?
Overall, I think it's good. thus far. I agree with everybody else that the show could stand on its own, but I definitely do want to see more crossovers. I want the Marvel shows to get to a point where at least kind of like the CW shows, where they'll have that 1 or 2 episodes where there'll be a character where they're a big part of like some of the stuff that's going on before going back off to do their own thing, while it still relates to like whatever the big overarching narrative is for that season, for that show specifically. I think that we're getting closer to that. Eventually after this comes out, and eventually when Daredevil season 3 comes out and Jessica Jones season 2 comes out, we'll probably get to that point where we'll start to see a lot more kind of like cameos, or at least, team ups, not so much in a big Defenders type of way, but team ups as like, oh, the Punisher and Daredevil team up again, or the Punisher and Jessica Jones somehow cross paths, or even Danny Rand and Luke Cage, Heroes for Hire at some point. Things like that, which I feel like we're working up to. Because granted, the Defenders was kind of like a mixed, was it reception? Because it was cool seeing them all together for the first time, but we all had our issues when we talked about it back then when we saw it. And, coming off of the Punisher now, or at least seeing the stuff of what they're doing now, I think that, again, we're slowly starting to build up that momentum towards other cool stuff that happens later on afterwards. So I like it thus far. I'm digging the Punisher.
Indeed. And how about you, Mr. Richard Bailey Jr.?
Yeah, I mean, I pretty much agree with everybody on this panel. A great show so far. Like I said, yeah, we definitely will have to see how the rest of the 7 episodes pan out. But I love the physicality and brutal nature of the show. And I like the fact that it does feel a lot more realistic in terms of stuff that happens, as well as stuff that can happen to certain characters. So far, I would say it's a good show. I will say this, I do agree about the cameos. With that said, there were some supporting cameos, but that's all I can say. I'm not going to go any further than that. But yeah, I would love to see other things, see how everything else is handled moving forward. And of course, if they decide to have Punisher, appear in some other shows again, like they did with Daredevil, I'll be fine with that. But yeah, I'm glad that he's able to hold his own show down without any problems.
Cool. Yeah, so that's pretty much our thoughts on the Punisher, the Marvel series on Netflix. So definitely look out for the show. And when you guys get to see the show, let us know your thoughts, leave your comments, and we will be back again to, have a spoiler-filled discussion about the show once it's been released, once we've, all watched the episodes and everything. We'll be back again to discuss this in full and see where the show stands then, because our opinions could change after that. So yeah, we'll see how it goes. But for now, it's peace out from us, and look out for more content, regarding movies and TV shows very soon. Peace.